Okay, we are live, and I am so happy to welcome Steven Rowell to be our guest today. He has provided change management consulting to over 24 Fortune 500 companies, including UPS, Walmart, Compass, Shell, and Pfizer. Wow, that is so impressive. He's also licensed his patient satisfaction system to 1,100 hospitals nationwide. Wow. Who doesn't want a hospital that is trying to improve patient satisfaction? That's fantastic, Stephen. And he credits much of his success to the 7 years that he spent acquiring new resorts for Disney. So that is pretty amazing. Anybody that's worked for Disney has a lot of experience with customer satisfaction. And Stephen has written 3 books. He has written Jumpstart Your Creativity, Success from the Inside Out, and Great Leader Conversation Starters, one-on-one team member conversations that boost engagement. He's also the founder of the Employee Engagement Institute. So welcome, Stephen. That's such an amazing, and that's only scratching the surface, but such an amazing, bio that you have.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Well, I am so happy because Stephen, I could immediately tell he was the kind of person that we could talk about emotional intelligence together, and I could tell that he was the kind of person that had a lot of emotional intelligence. And one of the things that I think is so interesting is that emotional intelligence, we used to call it a soft skill, and it was like, yeah, well, we don't really need that, do we? And it doesn't really, we've got to worry about the bottom line, the dollar. And so tell me about your experience with using emotional intelligence in your career.
Sure. So I would say one of the most profound lessons that I learned when I was working as a college intern at Walt Disney World. I worked at the front desk of the Grand Floridian Beach Resort and had a blast checking in guests as they were arriving for their magical Disney vacations. And one of the things that Disney does is that they have a script. So if you work at the front desk, you have a script to follow in terms of checking in your guests. If you're a bellman and you're going to take the guest from the front desk to the guest room, then you have a script as well. And then the concierge has a script and so on. And so I'm an extroverted person, very excitable, and would love to do my check-ins with guests. I ended up receiving several guest letters from guests, complimenting my experience as a front desk clerk and all of that, or as a front desk host. But what happened was, at the end of my college program experience, I was sat down for my final interview, or for my final meeting to get feedback, my final feedback session. And the manager that I had at the time sat down with me and he said, "Steven, just want to let you know, the average time to check in a guest on the Disney script is 14 minutes, and your average time is 18 minutes. Number one, so you might want to think about that if you are to come back to work at Disney World again on the college program, or come back after college. Just want you to think about that. But also want you to know this one thing, Stephen. Bellman, whenever they would see that their check-in was coming up and it was going to be your guest, they would actually try to pay cash to the next bellman to get them to take your check-in. And would you like to know why?" And I said, "Well, I'm so puzzled. Why would that be?" And they said, "Because part of the reason that you take 18 minutes to check a guest in is that you would not only do the script or the spiel for the front desk, but you would also tell some of the magic of the bellman's experience. And so what we want you to understand is," and I was devastated because the last thing I wanted to do was be doing something wrong working at Disney. And so he said, "Steven, what I want you to remember is you're a part of the show. You're not the show. And if you do come back to work at Disney again, either on a college program, internship, or if you come after college, just always remember that you're a part of the show. You're not the show."
Oh,
And so, true story, I ended up crying as I went back to my car and
oh,
drove home to Fort Worth, Texas after the college internship. And I thought I'd completely blown it, and didn't know for sure what was going to happen. But sure enough, that taught me two things. One was Dwan Rivers modeled the managerial courage to tell me what no one had told me. So imagine all that time that I'd been working there for 4 months, and no one had told me that there was concern about the way I was doing my check-ins. So that was one thing I got, was a leadership lesson around managerial courage, which was what Dwan Rivers was showing me, to have the courage to tell me even though no one else had told me. And then the other was just simply the emotional intelligence to realize that I'm a part of the show, not the whole show. And that has really stuck with me, and has manifested into, I think, what a lot of people will tell you is a sense of humility. So I'm quite grateful for the experience. No matter how painful it might have been to go through it, I'm grateful for the experience.
Right. I can sense that you're eager and you wanted to do such a good job,
Yep.
and yet how humble of you to take that and to recognize, yeah, I'm not the show.
Yep.
And yet people loved you because they're sending, letters, and you probably had
Exactly.
longer check-in times because you were so engaged with and wanting to.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think
Exactly.
that was probably another element that I'm sure they recognized, because they did invite you back, and
Yeah.
and and you had a very successful career at Disney. Tell us some of the stories about working with Disney.
Oh, working with Disney. Well, there's so many, but I have to tell you, one of the great stories was I was working at the front desk, and this celebrity was at the resort on vacation, actually, and he was receiving a bunch of packages through FedEx, multiple packages a day, and I delivered the packages to his room, and it was George Hamilton, and George Hamilton was there and was actually considering new movie scripts for scripts that were being sent to him, and he was there reviewing them while he was at Walt Disney World. And he also was not just there on vacation, but he was also there on the Star a Day program, which is a big thing they had at the studios. And so one of the things that happened was, I was able to take him around the property in a Disney Cadillac and take him anywhere he wanted to go. We went shopping and took him anywhere he wanted to go throughout the Disney property. And one of the things that was profound that he shared with me was, he said, "Steven, do you know one of the challenges to owning 7 homes?" And I said, "No, I don't know the challenge of owning 7 homes. Tell me more." And he said, "Well, so many times I'll fly into one of my homes and it doesn't feel like home. It just feels empty." And today, you would use language like it feels like an Airbnb. Um, and so it was interesting that what he was really talking about was, while it's great to have multiple properties and all of that, he really was speaking to ultimately what was a sense of loneliness. And it was a vulnerable moment for him to be so humble and to share that. But what I have to tell you is, he was one of the most humble, most gracious celebrities that I ever took care of while I was working at the Grand Floridian. And I think it was really grounded, as he has said, and you can see this on YouTube in different interviews that he has done. His mother always taught him to be kind to everyone, no matter who it is, no matter what rank or file they are in society. And I experienced that with him absolutely firsthand. And so it was just really profound. But I also had the opportunity to work with a lot of other celebrities. And it was just really great to see who those celebrities were that were truly grounded in who they were. And it wasn't about the pomp and circumstance, and it wasn't about the celebrity and all of that. And a few of those that come to mind just to share in terms of those that were so grounded and so generous and humble were people like Tom Cruise, Paul Newman, Kevin Costner, names that you would not necessarily think would come up on that list. But I just have to tell you, they were some of the most down to earth, grounded people that I'd seen in the industry.
Oh, what a rewarding experience, with George, to have him share that vulnerable feeling,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, most of us don't know the problem of having 7 homes.
Right.
And that was not what I expected to hear you say was one of
Right.
the challenges. I would think I was thinking of all kinds of other things, but I didn't think of that. And yet that makes sense, because if you don't have just like one home that you keep coming home to, which one is my home?
Exactly.
Your brain kind of gets confused sometimes.
Yeah.
Wow. And to deal with so many celebrities. And I have to say, for you to be the one chosen to escort him around and take him shopping and do whatever he had to do, they had to recognize your expertise and natural abilities at being such a great conversationalist.
I would hope so. Yes, I would hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure, I hope you got that recognition on your evaluations, because
Yes.
I can tell that if I was the boss and I was thinking, which one of these employees do I want to send around to escort him, I would think of the person that could have the most caring nature
Yep.
to
Yep.
be a good conversationalist. And so you
Yep.
made him feel so at home that he was willing to share
Yep.
that with you.
Yep. Absolutely.
So tell me about a time, because I know in the hospitality industry, emotional intelligence is so key, especially when there's a challenging situation, when things aren't going well, the customer is unhappy.
Yep.
Tell me if you can think of a time. I don't know if there's ever been one with you, but did you ever have a time where somebody's emotions were escalated and you were, dealing with that, and how you had to use emotional intelligence with those interactions?
Absolutely. So if you think about it, at the Grand Floridian Beach Resort, the average vacation at the time I was there, the average vacation was about $8,000. So regardless of how wealthy you are, $8,000 is a significant investment and breeds a significant expectation for a vacation.
Right.
So, and then we all know there's different types of personalities. There's people that are really demanding and expect the world and are totally, over the top with all of their expectations, and they don't care about the other person. And so they're very demanding and all of that. We know those people exist. And then we also know there's the people that are just really anxious to do something magical for their spouse or partner. And so their anxiety and their stress is up because they're wanting to really impress or, surprise their family members. So there's always something at stake
Yeah.
whenever you're working at a Walt Disney World guest resort, because it's the magic is expected. But one of the things that happened, we had a gentleman from New York, and he really just lost his mind and was just really upset over some rather trivial aspects of what was going on with his check-in. But he just completely um, lost his mind and was making one of his daughters actually cry. She was so upset by seeing daddy so upset. And so what I did was I came out from behind the front desk and I walked up to him. I shook his hand. I said, "Sir, I understand. I understand. I understand. I understand." And I just kept repeating that until his volume of his voice would start to de-escalate and start going down. And I said, "Sir, Matt, walk with you this way just briefly." And he said, "Sure, why?" And so I'm taking him away from all the other guests so that the other guest vacations aren't getting ruined by this screaming, yelling guest. But what he doesn't know is that I'm walking him right down along the front desk of the Grand Floridian, and right around the corner is the Grand Floridian Cafe and 1900 Park Fair, where the two restaurants are that have character breakfast. And so what he doesn't know is that I'm about to walk him around the corner and he's going to run right into Mickey Mouse in a tuxedo. And so we walk right around the corner, and sure enough, as if it was Disney magic, Mickey Mouse was coming directly out of the restaurant in his tuxedo. And I said, "Good morning, Mickey." And the man stops in his tracks. And you saw the little boy inside this man come bubbling to the top. And Mickey did his magic and welcomed the man. And after that interaction, I turned to the man, and without having to say a word myself, he looked at me and he goes, "I am so sorry.
Oh,
I apologize. I'm so sorry."
wow.
And he goes, let's go back to my family." And I said, "Absolutely, right this way." And then I just took him right back to his family. And we don't have Mickey Mouse in our lives to be able to have as your interventional partner every day. But I think we do have moments of magic that are available to us in terms of the way we respond to those upset people. One of the things I learned, which Ritz-Carlton teaches to their employees as well, is this phrase of saying, "Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. I understand. I understand. Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible." All you're trying to do is connect with the person where they're at emotionally with their energy, and then hopefully de-escalate them from there, and then be able to have a more, calm conversation at that point.
Yeah, and I have to identify some amazing things that you did in that moment. First of all, you recognized immediately that he was escalating, and you came around from the behind the counter so that there was a closer physical proximity and the connection so that you were being able to create that connection, because you feel more cared about when someone is closer to you. Whereas if there's a barrier of that front desk, it can cause you to feel less connected. So that
True.
was the first thing that I, well, first was you recognized, you were aware, and then you acted in that way. And then as you were listening to him and you were saying, I understand, but he was still so escalated, to draw him away, because you were also aware of the other guests and how it was affecting them. You were aware of his daughter, and just to pull him away to just have even more connection between you and him. And then to bring him into that environment where he would have something that would touch his heart, knowing that that breakfast was going on with the Disney characters, and to see his little heart melt when he interacted with Disney,
Yeah.
with Mickey. I mean, that your awareness is so keen, and I sense that you have probably a highly sensitive personality.
Yes. Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that probably aids you in being so skilled in these human interactions, especially when someone is escalated. So I
Mhm.
wanna I wanna switch gears here and ask about the healthcare industry. When you worked in healthcare, did
Mhm.
you do you have any other stories about, because I know that can be a time when people's emotions get very escalated, being in the healthcare industry. I've been in hospitality and I've been in healthcare, and so I was very drawn to you because of those things, and I sensed that you had probably had some challenging experiences. Do you have any stories from your
Sure.
years in health?
Sure. So one of the most profound stories that I just felt blessed to be a part of. It was not easy during the moment, but afterwards, I was forever blessed by having had the experience. And that was a time when an elderly Jewish man was the patient, and he was just belligerent and was just being obstinate and obstructionist, and just was just not really working with the nursing staff or with the CNAs, the nursing aides, and so on. And he even started using expletives that were just totally inappropriate towards some of the staff. And we all were like, how can we get him to stop doing this? Number one, but number two, how can we meet him where he's at in terms of what he's going through and what he's feeling? And so, one of the most profound things that ever came to me is I shook the man's hand. I reached in to shake his hand, and I saw the tattoo on his wrist. And I looked down, and I looked at him,
Mm.
and then I looked down, and I looked at him, and without saying a word, his whole body energy, his whole spirit shifted. And I feel that that's that moment that I was able to be a vessel, to simply be a mirror or to reflect, because those who aren't tracking, the tattoo was a Holocaust tattoo.
Right.
And so I was able to just simply rest in silence with him. But by glancing at the tattoo and then looking at him, he got the message loud and clear. And then he again ended up apologizing, not only to the nurse and to the nurse's aide, but then basically for the rest of the day, anybody that came into the room, he apologized. And whether he had been, upset with them or not. And so I really believe that there's an elegance and a grace that can be practiced in healthcare, that makes healthcare truly special. Um, that man was not in that hospital bed because he wanted to be. He was there
Right.
because he had to be, and had his own anxiety about what his condition was and what the prognosis was. And so, again, it's just another beautiful example of what I've learned over the years is that we don't have to be the one that has all the answers and to say all the words. We don't have to be the one speaking all the time in order to still be able to intervene or to facilitate a different outcome or a different discovery. It's really about being there to facilitate the discovery for the guest or for the patient, and really help them understand that you're there, but you don't have to always be the one with the answer or the one that's there to have the perfect script or the perfect words to say at the moment. Sometimes just being there in silence can actually bridge the gap, which is what happened in both these cases, both at Disney as well as at the hospital. It's the use of silence to bridge the gap.
Oh, Stephen, that is so profound, because so many times as a leader, we think we have to have all the answers. And we think there's a lot of pressure that we can put on ourselves to think we not only have to have the answers, but then we have to know how to say it, in the way that's just perfect. But what you are speaking about really resonates with me, that it's the energy that we come across with, that it's how we care. And if we care, you cared, and you let him know that you cared just by noticing, just by where your eyes went, and then coming back to his eyes, and he could feel that. And because he felt that you cared, then his emotions de-escalated. And I think that power of the co-regulation, where as you were regulated, and then you helped him to regulate his emotions, is so beautiful. And you did it in silence, and that is even more powerful, because you don't have a miscommunication with a word or a tone of voice or anything. You just feel that someone really cares about you, and that is just so beautiful, Stephen. I appreciate that so much. Well, I want to switch gears here for just a minute, because wow, we're having so much fun. We could go on and on, but I would like to have you talk about when we are wanting to have more words and we're wanting to increase that engagement as a leader. And I'm intrigued by your Conversation Starters book. Can you tell us a little bit more about what prompted you to write this book, and what are some of the tips that you share with leaders about how to have conversations that do increase engagement?
Sure. So a lot of employee engagement research has been done over the last 20 years, and everybody from Gallup to Deloitte to the Hay Group to other big, huge HR research companies, they've all, consulting firms, they've all come up with this great data around employee engagement and what it takes to really improve employee engagement, to the point that we no longer need more content or more information. We know what needs to happen. We know the key drivers, if you will, for employee engagement. And it's everything from soliciting your employees' opinions to building authenticity and trust in the relationship, psychological safety, all these different aspects of key drivers of employee engagement that we're well aware of, that research has proven over the years. But what we don't have is, and I'll just give it to you this way, with a SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management survey, says that 93% of managers admitted to still needing more training on coaching skills. And so one of the things that's missing, and I've seen this in my own consulting practice for 25 years, is managers don't know how to start a conversation with an employee. And they also don't know what the conversation is supposed to look like, or what the structure or the format of the conversation is supposed to be. So one of the things that the Great Leader Conversation Starters book is all about is it's about asking questions to get better results, rather than the manager or the leader having all the answers. And so what the book really is based on each of the major key drivers of employee engagement. So under different things, psychological safety, the whole notion of soliciting input, whatever the category may be, it's a series of questions that managers and leaders can use to simply ask a question to an employee to start the conversation. And then there are tips in the book on how to actively listen to what the employee is saying, and then to simply respond back or reflect back what you're hearing from the person, rather than feeling that you have to have the answer or the rebuttal, or being able to refute what the person says or anything like that. It's not meant to be a combative or competitive conversation. Obviously, it's meant to be a facilitative, supportive conversation. But really, the key is attuning managers and leaders to the notion of part of your role, if not a majority of your role, is to engage your people to facilitate a few things. One, to facilitate their own self-discovery as an employee and as a person, and then also to facilitate their success in their own role, in their own job, and therefore hopefully find meaning and purpose in their work. And so if you really understand that, then the role of a leader or a manager is to be a coach, it's to be a facilitator, it's not to have all the answers. And so just even within the word coaching, which is now such a common term, it's all about asking better questions and then helping the person with their own self-discovery or arriving at their own answers, rather than trying to spoon feed them and tell them what they should be thinking or what they should be doing.
Oh, this is revolutionary because, it reminds me so much about so many times, as when I'm speaking to leaders, the old school way is, what can I say to teach them? It's really more about teaching. I need to help them. I need to teach them. I need to get them on track. I need to whatever. But that element of listening, it reminds me of Stephen R. Covey when he said that seek first to understand and then to be understood. So many times leaders have that backwards. They want the employee to understand them and what the leader thinks is important. But when we truly listen without thinking of how we're going to rebut or what we're going to say next, but when we truly listen to understand and make it safe for the other person. So first, we have to be in a state of mind where we're grounded and where we are calm, so that they do feel safe and they know that we care about them. Then they are more inclined to answer the questions. And when we're really curious, help me understand, share with me your perspective, and you feel like someone really cares, then people do open up. And I find when I'm in those kind of environments and I'm the one that's sharing my feelings, that when someone really does care, my brain does open up and I do have self-discovery. And even as I say the words, I'm enlightened by my own words sometimes. And I find that process fascinating, that it took the environment of, one, feeling cared about, and two, pure curiosity, and three, the depth of the questions, the skill of the questions, because I can have the first two elements, but when someone asks really good questions, I'm like, oh, my brain starts firing. And so I think your book is probably just hitting on all three of those in very powerful ways.
The genuine state of curiosity is definitely a key to being a successful leader. It's when you're genuinely curious about the other person or about the challenge or the opportunity that you're trying to resolve as a group. The curiosity piece is absolutely huge. I totally agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. Well, oh my goodness. So this is great. So if any of you as leaders are wanting to increase your engagement, I encourage you to connect with Steven Rowell, to read his book about great leader conversation starters, and his other books as well. And also look into his Employee Engagement Institute, because I just can tell that Steven and I could talk for hours. And I look forward to having more conversations with him. And so I just appreciate you being with us today, Steven. How could people best connect with you?
Well, they can either connect with me at LinkedIn, which is Steven with a V, Rowell, Steven Rowell, on LinkedIn, or you can check me out at theemployeeengagementinstitute.com, theemployeeengagementinstitute.com. You can also just schedule a call with me by going to talkwithsteven.com, talkwithsteven.com, and would be more than happy to chat with people. I love connecting people with others and with other resources. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. So, Steven, if you don't mind going and putting those links in the comments after we finish our conversation, so that people could find you on my audience and also your audience, because I know that a lot of people are going to want to connect with you, because I was so excited. And thank you so much for being with us today. So I'm Karen Hall, and I'm an emotional intelligence leadership coach. So happy to be with Steven on the Empathy Advantage podcast today. Look forward to seeing you again. And we will probably have to have you on again for a subsequent episode, because I have even more questions I want to ask you. So thanks again, Steven.
Thank you.